Back you've never seen. I'll be right back. There's no quicker way to get into DFS. Play Super Draft today and see for yourself.
We're behind. They're all fired up. What we got to do? First place, our defense has got to go out there and take the ball. Then when we get the ball, we got to have 11 people that's going to do their job and try to score every time you get the football. If we do that, we'll be all right. That will be all right.
Happy Monday, everybody. We are back. It is another edition of Football University with me, former Alabama wide receiver, Matt Caddell, where we basically talk here at Football University anything and everything regarding football. And yes, we find a way to bring it back to the one and only, the Crimson Tide. So RTR to all the fans out there, all the people in the student section. Let's go. Cindy Reed, Roll Tide, Rise Up. We've got an exciting show. I'm going to be talking about a lot of things from Coach Saban, this football news, spring training, SEC spring football news, NFL news. You know how we do it here at Football University. So RTR to all the student section, Roll Tide, Rise Up. Everybody, Joe Saban and Stephen Hicks, shouts out. So let's get it started. I'm going to start with, since we find a way to bring it back to Alabama, I'm going to start with Coach Saban is my first topic. I know we haven't talked since two weeks ago. I want to discuss Coach Saban. A lot of things happened this past couple weeks since we've talked. And Coach Saban had his charitable Knicks Kids golf tournament in Birmingham, Alabama. One thing I want to take a note right there, Coach Saban always being under him, he's always big about giving back, serving. It has value to, serve other people and give back to the community. And so that's one thing Coach is very important to Coach Saban, as well as Knicks Kids. And he had his golf tournament in Birmingham. And, it's always good to give back. But the way we had our team represented it in Coach Saban's Knicks Kids golf tournament, I don't think I've seen this before. I've discussed what's important for this team. I think they build camaraderie, chemistry off the field and do some things beyond the football field. I think that's going to take their team chemistry to the next level, even before training camp. But listen, being in Birmingham at Knicks Kids, it was the first for me. Coach Saban was there, Miss Terry, his daughter, but all the coaches, his coaching staff was there. I think this was the first year I have seen all the coaching staff. Coach Holzer, Coach Wolf, Holloman Wiggins, Freddie Roach, Robert Bala, Kevin Steele, Tommy Reese. We saw all the staff, and I thought that was very important and very key to see that type of unity, to see that type of united front from the coaching staff at a great charitable event in Birmingham. And Coach Saban had some of his players. He had Malachi Moore, Justin Bogby, Dylan Lonergan, Kool-Aid, and Corey Brooks. I mean, anything to me, it was so many guys. Kendrick Law, a lot of the players there that were just there not only to add value, give back, but to still be together as a team. And so I wanted to highlight that. I thought it was the first to see the Tide that united at Coach Saban's Knicks Kids golf tournament. And Coach Saban had some interesting quotes. He mentioned, he was in Rome and Venice and all these places. And he said he got so many Roll Tides wherever he went, whether he was in Rome. So he says Alabama has such an iconic brand that's like no other. And that's what we do here at Football University. We find a way to bring it back to Alabama. So I'm going to continue to talk about Coach Saban and the Knicks Kids charitable event. But let's take a pause. Let's get to the student section. Let's see what everybody is talking about before I get to my next topic. So we got a lot of Roll Tides. So my next topic, sticking on the point of Saban, the team holistically, coming together. Another thing Coach Saban is, we haven't talked in a while. Coach Saban had another charity event where he has Habitat for Humanity in Tuscaloosa, where he builds a house for each championship or whatnot. So I think he went ahead and built the house this year, him and Miss Terry. Tuscaloosa was devastated by the tornadoes a while back. And, just to show, once again, Coach Saban valuing charity, giving back to others, the community, being invested in the community. He's able to put up this house for, the citizens of Tuscaloosa. And, he had players there. He had his guys there. And, Coach Saban had some interesting quotes. He mentioned this is probably his 20th house putting up. And it got me thinking, I wonder what number is it for Coach Saban that he's trying to get to in his head. Is it 20? Right now, Alabama has 18 national championships. We know Georgia's won the past 2. But I think maybe Coach Saban's trying to get 2 more, probably even more so. Maybe 3, before he heads up. So it got me thinking. So I wanted to share that here at Football University. Let's go to the student section. Y'all are rolling and rocking. Jeff Saban says, ready for the season to start. Give the thumbs up. I think everybody is ready for the season to start. Speaking of the football season, we talked about Coach Saban giving back the charity, how Alabama football team looking united from the coaching staff, everybody, kind of building that chemistry and bond. I want to talk about, going from Coach Saban, talking about the players and, the team building that chemistry. I want to talk about, let's shift to the SEC news. So the SEC had their meetings in Florida, Destin, down there on the Panhandle with the beautiful beaches. We know how beautiful those beaches are. So they had their spring meetings. So Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, was down there. He breaking news. Big story that came out of, the SEC meetings was that starting in 2020-24, when Texas and Oklahoma, when we expand in the SEC and we go to the 12-team playoff, Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, mentioned that the SEC will be going to an 8-game schedule plus 1, probably Power 5 school, non-conference school, no divisions in the SEC. And I thought that was so interesting. So it's probably going to be more like an NFL model. I don't know if we're going to have any quads or anything, but I know having the 12-team playoff, I think the SEC will get minimum 5 or 6 teams each year, 4 to 6 teams each year in the 12-team playoff. So that was big news coming out of Destin, Florida, for the SEC spring meeting. So, so that was my next topic. So we discussed Coach Saban, Alabama football team, the SEC spring meetings. I know I want to shift back to Alabama football teams, and I want to say that a lot of news, the team's building camaraderie, and another news that Jalen Milroe, him, Ty Simpson, they've been working, pushing this offseason, working on their game. So I'm kind of going to pause right here with the quarterbacks and discuss the quarterbacks. Like I said, Ty Simpson, Jalen Milroe, both have been working really hard. I've seen videos of Jalen Milroe. I've heard different stories about him working hard, but heard that, to kind of work on his timing. Jalen Milroe had some guys down there in Florida, Tampa, Malik Benson, a lot of the guys that really work on his craft. So I thought that was really important for Jalen Milroe to really work on his timing. I think it's important he gets as many reps, get as many balls up as a quarterback, working on his mechanics, his footwork, more confidence, getting the timing right, accuracy, throwing a better ball. I think it's important that he gets that, because I feel like Ty Simpson is going to push him like that for this competition. So, Ty Simpson's been working out, hearing great things about him. Milroe's been working out. And so that story got me thinking about Milroe. A lot of people are kind of split, whether it's Milroe, Ty Simpson, Milroe. I think it's going to come down to those two. Maybe you look at a Dylan Lonergan, Tyler Buechner, or, maybe an Eli Holstein or somebody like that. But I still think it's Ty Simpson and Jalen Milroe battle for this QB position. So regardless of who the quarterback is, I still think it's important that the quarterbacks, take that command, have that demand of the offense, the leadership, the intangibles, to make the offense go. So, and I want to talk about Milroe. So I mentioned Milroe earlier, him getting the timing down in Tampa, Florida with some of the guys. I thought that's important, but I still think, I looked at Milroe and, he's still undefeated as a starter. I think we got to give him some credit. He still turned the ball over and, things like that, but he was still able to win the game. The Texas A&M game, he had those fumbles. Ball security was a little bit of issue. I think he had issues with Bill O'Brien not playing to his strengths. I think Bill O'Brien was trying to call Bryce Young's playbook instead of calling plays for works great for Jalen Milroe. But neither here nor there. He got the win versus Texas A&M, and we know it was a nail biter. And also, he came in when Bryce Young got hurt versus Arkansas, up there in Arkansas. So he had to play majority of the game. So he's still technically, he has experience. He's still undefeated as a starter. So he's going to need to hold on, continue to improve, continue to develop at the QB position in order for us to be effective. Because I think Ty Simpson is coming. I really think he's really good. So let's get into the section. Let's take a pause right here. Just Saban says on Alabama to get back to the team saying, I don't want to play those elephants. Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. Great comment, Just Saban. We're going to kind of discuss the mentality, the kind of energy the Alabama football team needs to have in order for them to be successful. So let's say 6-0 has a great comment. He says, Matt, June 9th is the day when 4-star Amari Jefferson will visit Alabama. Is Amari worth spending time on recruiting him? Your take. So my take is, great comment, 6-0. My take is with this 2024 class, I think it's a lot of talent at the receiver position. Amari Jefferson, we got the commit Rico Scott from New Jersey. He kind of reminds me of a John Mechie. You got Aaron Hampton. You got a lot of talented guys, but I think it's going to come down to which, 4 or 5 guys that Alabama is going to get. So Amari Jefferson right now, a lot of guys are camping down there in Tuscaloosa. I think it's important that, young kids go to these college camps and get coached by some of the best coaches. If you can go to Coach Nick Saban's camp, please do go. It's going to only help your game. But, these guys are camping, competing against one another. So having their official visits, we know this is Alabama's recruiting time, to get guys on campus, taking official visits. So, Amari Jefferson, his commitment date is on June 9th. But like I said, I think we're in a good space for a lot of wide receivers. It's going to come down to, which guys are going to separate for us. So great comment, 6-0 on the recruiting tip. And on the recruiting tip. So let's go to my next topic. So I discussed Coach Saban, Bama football, spring meetings, Mill Road, Ty Simpson. So I kind of want to go back. So at Coach Saban's golf event, he had the former players I mentioned. Malachi Moore. Coach Saban was coaching him up on his golf swing. But listen, Dylan Lonergan, this guy is a natural athlete. He was out there. He looked like probably one of the best golfers. He had a really good golf swing. And it made me want to pause and say, listen, Dylan Lonergan, don't sleep on him. The talent that's coming in from Georgia, he's just a natural athlete, two-way sport athlete, plays football, plays baseball. He's just a natural athlete, and you can see by his golf swing. So, he looked very good in the spring game, 8A game. So I wouldn't be surprised, to see Dylan Lonergan. He has great mobility being an athlete. So, he could push Ty Simpson and Milroe and Buckner and all these guys for this QB role. So let's go into the student section. Jeff Stapleton says, Matt, we got Keon Keeley. Yes, we do have Keon Keeley, and I'm glad you mentioned Keon Keeley because most of the guys that's signed for the class of 2023 are in Tuscaloosa. Keon Keeley, Yonze Pierre, Richard Young, I think Trey Amos, Jaden Key, all those guys are there. And we got Tony Mitchell. I believe Tony Mitchell was able to get back and do all football activities. And listen, I mentioned Trey Amos. I mentioned Jaden Key. Having Tony Mitchell with the Caleb Downs, listen, we have a really scary hours defensive secondary with the influx of Tony Mitchell. I think he's learned his lesson. So I think hopefully, he comes in and, takes up. He's going to have to compete, always compete. He's got Caleb Downs. I wouldn't be surprised. You see, maybe we have two freshmen back there in the secondary, with all the talent that we have. So, that makes me want to bring me up to my next topic that I wanted to discuss. So I mentioned we're going to talk about Alabama football, kind of the mentality, the energy, things that they need to do. I mentioned them building the camaraderie, building the chemistry off the field. I want to talk about another thing that I think, we need to do as a team. I think we need to rotate players. We have so much talent. I just mentioned the talent in the secondary. Caleb Downs, Malachi Moore, Christian Story, Jaden Key, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Terrion Arnold, Earl Little. I mean, we have so many talented pieces. I think it's important that we rotate guys and rotate depth. I think that just helps us in the end when it comes to having that depth, being successful on having the SEC depth. That way we can win a championship. At the end of the day, it's all about winning the championship. I know Coach Saban is gunning to win the championship. So I think it's important that our coaches rotate. We're going to rotate the offensive line. We're going to rotate the running backs. I think it's important to rotate the linebackers and just really play so many different multiple variations and quality SEC depth where we just are so dominant. And Alabama's getting back to having that, like as Jeff Stapleton said, we don't want to have to play Alabama. We don't want to have to play these guys. So that's what I wanted to talk about. So let's go to the student section. Let's see where you all are talking about. Let's go. We got a few Jeff Saban says Hugh Freeze is trying to flip Perry Thompson. Yeah, you know, obviously in-state rivalry, Alabama, Auburn, Perry Thompson, the talent out of the state of Alabama in that class with Ryan Williams, Jalen Mbakwe, Perry Thompson. And right now, all these guys are committed to Alabama. And Hugh Freeze is going to try to flip them. But for me, as a competitor, I would want to go where the best and try to compete and do my thing. But you never know with these kids. As I say, I know a lot of kids are committing. It is a long, long season. A lot happens. These kids travel. The football season, they're going to watch Bama be dominant, and they're going to be like, man, I just want to go to Bama. So let's stay in the student section. We got a few more recruiting. Y'all are going in on recruiting today. Why is it that a 5-star quarterback doesn't translate to a D1 college football? So for some great question, James Knox, whether it's a 5-star quarterback, receiver, I think you got to have some type of maturity, some type of work ethic, some type of, something that's going to separate yourself at the next level, i.e. D1 SEC football. That way you got to be a leader. You got to come in and compete. You got to prove it on the field. And so some guys, they might not want to compete. They deal with a little adversity. They don't know how to handle. They maybe don't have the right, maturity, the right mindset, the right mentality. They're on their own. So a lot of factors can go into why somebody might not translate. But I will talk about the ones that did translate. Bryce Young, for instance, he was a 5-star guy coming out of California. He, came in, competed. And the rest is history, but you have, guys where it doesn't work out. But I do think Julian's saying that quarterback that's coming up in 2024, I believe, yeah, that guy's the real deal, Holyfield. I think he's going to translate to be something different, kind of on a Bryce Young level when it comes to this quarterback play. Jeff Saban's talking about Keon Keeley wearing Will Anderson's number. Listen, this guy has the body frame. I think he's 6'5", 6'6", something like that. The talent coming out of Florida, speed rush off the edge, can beat you power, quickness. He's the guy that just you look at him, you're like, oh, he is a stud. So I'm glad we got Keon Keeley, Richard Young. Tony Mitchell's back. The talent that Alabama has, I think it's important. Like I said earlier, they build a chemistry, they build a camaraderie. But, we continue to build that confidence with each other and make each other better. That way we can win that 19th national championship, and we can thank David Pollack for it. So let's stay in the student section. Stephen Hicks says Saban seems to be recruiting monsters. Says he's done. People are saying he's done. Yeah, I love it when people count Coach Saban out, especially on the recruiting trail. Knowing Coach Saban for however long and being recruited by him in high school, when he was at LSU, being able to play against him when he was at LSU and then being able to play under him coming back to Alabama. This guy takes recruiting to another level. Everybody's trying to catch up with him. He absolutely loves recruiting. He loves evaluating talent. He loves building the relationships. And so, like I said, Coach Saban loves recruiting monsters. We've getting a lot of talent. So I think, the development program, I think it's important. Like I said earlier, those kids, they have the right mindset, the right mentality, come in and work and compete. That way they can be successful. And buying to what Coach Saban is saying, because it's going to pay off in the end. So let's go to my next topic. Let's go to my next topic while y'all are going in. So my next time, I talked about Alabama. I talked about how the football team needs to rotate players. I talked about certain players. I talked about having all the coaches there. But I want to talk about this sneaky quote, not quote necessarily, but I want to talk about the mindset Alabama team needs to have. They need to play with the next level of confidence. I think with Coach Saban having Tommy Rees, Kevin Steele, not having Pete Golden and Bill O'Brien as his coordinators, Coach Saban's going to get back, and Alabama's going to have this type of next level of confidence. And I know, here at Football University, I love to find a way to bring it back to Alabama. It's that time of year. We got golf going on, and we got the NBA playoffs. And so I was like, man, how can I wanted to tie it into Football University and bring it back to Alabama. So I want to say this about Alabama. You look at teams playing with confidence in the NBA Finals. I mean, you look at the Miami Heat, you look at the Denver Nuggets, and, notes that I took from game one that Alabama can benefit from. Well, look at the Miami Heat, for instance. I say Coach Saban needs to be like Eric Spoelstra, making sure he letting the opposing coach know that he's still the GOAT, i.e. he knows how to make adjustments. He knows how to will his team to play, and he's a great X's and O's guy, and he develops his players, and he gets his players to outperform their talent. You look at the Miami Heat, they play with a lot of undrafted guys outside of like Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, but yet Pat Riley has that championship pedigree. Eric Spoelstra has that championship pedigree. I think it's important that Alabama Coach Saban has that championship pedigree where, we have all the talent in the room, but yet he needs to be like Eric Spoelstra and get his guys to outperform their talents, no matter how great they are. Like you look at a Caleb Downs or Tony Mitchell or whoever, these guys need to be playing even more at a higher level, because these guys, Miami Heat, Game 7, in the Eastern Conference Finals, whoever wins goes to the finals. They went into Boston and won Game 7, and after Game 6 they lost. Eric Spoelstra was showing the next level of confidence, like we're gonna win Game 7. I believe Miami Heat booked their flight for Denver because they knew they were gonna win Game 7. And that just shows you the next level of confidence, and that's the type of confidence I want Alabama and Coach Saban, this Alabama Crimson Tide football team, to have, where we're going to come out there and going to be dominant, and we're going to win. So I want to talk about, not only rotating the depths, I'm talking about different characteristics or intangibles that I think this football team needs to have in order for them to be, extremely dominant this year. So they need to have that next level of confidence like the Miami Heat, and I think Coach Saban will get that from Eric Spoelstra. So, the Miami Heat, they're playing the Denver Nuggets, and you look at Jokic, who's, should have won a 3-time MVP, but they gave it to Embiid, but that's neither here nor there. But you look at Jokic, and I was like, listen, Denver, they're so tall and big, and they won that Game 1 in Denver, and they were so dominant. And I made me make a quick note that Alabama needs to use their bigs, the big offensive line, Caden Proctor, Seth McLaughlin, Booker, Latham, all these guys. And we need to run the ball. We use our bigs like the Denver Nuggets uses Jokic, and our bigs needs to be our offensive line and our running game. So I think that just helps our Alabama football team just be dominant like Jokic up front. And if you look at that Game 1, Jokic, I had some notes that Game 1, they were so good offensively, and he was so dominant. He didn't really have to do anything. He had so many assists, and it made me take a mental note that Alabama needs to get back, i.e. Tommy Rees. You have the running game. You have Jokic. You have our offensive line. We have the running backs, Justice Haynes, all these running backs. We need to be able to we know we have that, but we need to be able to develop other areas of our offense. The tight ends, the receivers, i.e. just like the Denver Nuggets did in Game 1, getting Aaron Gordon off, Jamal Murray off. We need to do that offensively for our offensive attack, because Jokic is our running game. So we need to be able to get other playmakers involved offensively. So we need to have that type of confidence, and we need to have that type of coaching that we can take away from the this NBA playoffs. And you look at Jokic, he was making because he's so dominant with the being big, he was making so many easy passes to his playmakers, getting them the ball, making the right play. And that's what our quarterback needs to be, whether it's Ty Simpson or Milroe. Take what the defense gives you. If it's easy plays, if we need to hit easy plays to our playmakers, make the easy play. Like, don't make it super hard. Make the easy play and get the ball to them. Make crisp passes like Jokic was making passes. So that was my whole NBA playoffs tie with the Jokic, the bigs running the game, the coaching, Saban, Spoelstra. We need to be able to make adjustments. So I had to bring that up about the NBA playoffs. So let's get the student section. I know y'all are rolling. Let's see. Let's see what all is saying. This is what I mentioned earlier. Matt Caddell, great comment. Yeah, Milroe did have team workouts with Alabama players down there in Tampa, Florida. And I think, to your point, that does show leadership skills, and it does stand out. I kind of touched on this earlier. I do think this does show a lot of maturity, a lot of want-to-itness for Jalen Milroe to really take ownership of this job and really build that chemistry, that camaraderie, that timing. I think it's important. He doesn't have that much experience, but he is undefeated, as I mentioned earlier, and I think it's important for him. He needs to get as many passes up. He needs to be throwing the ball all the time. That way he's getting pinpoint accurate. He's able to play with confidence under Tommy Rees's system at the line of scrimmage. That way he can be the game slows down for him. But like I said, Milroe, he needs to push himself because, listen, Ty Simpson is coming. I just really think this guy has the accuracy, the demeanor, the plays. I think he has the savviness of an AJ McCarron, mixed with the little Joe Burrow. So, it's going to be interesting. So I think it's going to come down to Milroe and Ty Simpson. And I think we're going to rely on both quarterbacks this year. So whoever starts, both are playing in the game because we're that good at the QB position. So great comment right there. Let's see. Yeah, great point. So, yeah, night game in Florida. Night game in Tuscaloosa for that Texas game. Under the lights, night kickoff. We're going to be in the Crimson. Texas is coming in. Sark, Quinn, Ewers. Listen, that game, we're going to be in the Crimson Crimson home jerseys. We need to draw blood from these Longhorns. We need to be dominant and send a message that night. Let them know that this Alabama team is for real and play with that next level of confidence like the Miami Heat, or, have those in-game adjustments like the Denver Nuggets, as I mentioned earlier. So great comment right there. Let's see. Y'all are kind of rolling. Let's see. We got some great comments. James Knox says, if Milroe's QB1, do you think he can rush for 1,000 yards? Ooh, I think he can. You look at Tommy Rees' system. He has a lot of quarterback mobility type of explosion plays. I think he has the potential to rush for 1,000 yards, but I don't think, we're going to kind of force him to be 1,000-yard rusher. If the play, if we need him to run a quarterback play, then yeah, he has the potential with his speed, his, able to do what he can do with the ball in his hands. But, I think it's important for us that, Milroe is, maybe he's not 1,000-yard rusher, but he's able to affect the game where he's opening up, the running backs, we're running the ball, the receivers. He's able to distribute the ball all around and be effective that way. So, he has the potential. He has the ceiling to go, 1,000+ yards rushing. But, I think it's important for, Milroe to be that, I don't want to say a game manager, but a game commander. and making sure this offense is effective. And we score points and we try to be dominant, to the defense, whoever the quarterback, whether it's Milroe or Simpson. So great comment right there for James Knox. Let's see. Let's see. Van Elver's great comment. He says more timing routes like West Coast style. Yeah, I think you're referring to Tommy Reese. Yeah, I mean, he's able to do, like I mentioned earlier, it's nothing. You look at Jokic, I'm talking about the NBA players, but nothing wows you about his game. But he makes simple, you know, football smart moves. And if you're not going to stop it, he's going to keep going at it. And I think that's what Tommy Reese does as just about as effective as any offensive coordinator coming from Notre Dame. Listen, he did not have the talent like he has in Tuscaloosa that he did in Notre Dame. So in Notre Dame, he really had to become even more so creative, even more so out scheme, out strategize defenses because he didn't have the talent like Alabama. So you can only imagine him having that same mindset. Coach Saban pushing him, building him, getting him right with confidence in the lab is only going to help our offense be successful. So, I'm excited about Tommy Reese. So great comment right there. Let's stay in the Sioux section. Y'all are rolling. Stephen Hicks says, I think both our offensive line, defensive line will show heart and be nasty. I agree. I think Saban's getting back to that next level of confidence in Alabama, looking like an Alabama team. We're physical up front on both ends, to your point, Stephen Hicks. We're physical on the offensive line. We're running the ball. Excuse me. We're going to get back to bullying ball on, and I think defensively, scheme-wise, with Kevin Steele and not Pete Golden, we're going to be, rushing for, sending pressure, really trying to get these deep offenses, affect these offenses in a way where they don't want to have to face us. So great point right there. So let's see. Van Elvers has a great comment right here. He says, 1,000-yard rushing, I say we have 3, whether that is a QB and 2 RBs or 3 RBs. Potential is there. Yeah, I agree. There is potential. Like I said, the ceiling is unreal with this Alabama team with Tommy Reese. I think it's important that we stay constant like the Jokic, we keep the running game going, but, we take the easy stuff. And, I do think we do have potential to maybe have 2 RBs that are 1,000 yards, whether it's McClellan and Wardell or whoever, you never know who's going to be. So it's going to be interesting to see. But Alabama, I do think they do have a high ceiling with this offense led by Tommy Reese. So let's stay in the student section. Y'all are rolling. Van Edwards, you are on the roll. Shouts out to Van Edwards. She says, Matt, are you team Shannon Sharp or team Skip? Unraveling of Disputed is a wild one to watch. Skip Bayless, Shannon Sharp, Undisputed. They kind of had the big fallout that one about because Skip Bayless is such a Tom Brady and LeBron. He loves Tom Brady and hates LeBron, and Shannon Sharp just, he's probably LeBron's number one fan on that show. But they had some really intense moments on their show, and I think latest update is they bought out or Shannon Sharp had a big buyout from Fox Sports. So I'm quite sure you probably see some mobility there. But I always like Shannon Sharp, Hall of Famer, even when he was with a tight end coming out of Georgia, Savannah State, HBCU, the brother of Sterling Sharp. I mean, they were both, his brother was a beast at Green Bay with the Packers, with Brett Favre and all those guys. So, but yeah, always been a Shannon fan of Shannon Sharp. He has a unique personality. So it's going to be interesting. But wow, yeah, we're talking about everything. This is what we do at Football University. We talk anything and everything about football. So let's get to my next topic. So I discussed the Alabama football team. I mentioned the intangibles, the things that I think we need to have, playing with that next level of confidence, having the coaching where we can make adjustments. So I wanted to talk about Alabama needs to get back to playing with juice. You look at those Alabama teams, and I've got to mention shouts out to Coach Cochran. He was there when I was there. Coach Cochran's now at Georgia, but I think when we lost Coach Cochran, we kind of lost some of that juice. I think it's important not only that Alabama plays with this confidence level, but we need to play with the right type of energy and bring the juice on the sideline. I mentioned earlier, in a couple shows, how I was so excited to see the 4 quarters in the spring game. I think we haven't seen that in a couple of years, having that, that want to, and this having it being so important for you. And I just think it's important, whether it's some of the assistant coaches, whether it's Robert Ballard, the strength and conditioning coaches, whether it's Coach Saban himself, some of the assistant coaches, they bring the juice and the energy and get these guys motivated and, just hyped up to play football. Like, football is so much fun. They need to be bringing the juice and play with that confidence. And so I think that's another intangible that Coach Saban and Alabama needs to have. Play the juice players. And I think Alabama, I mentioned rotating earlier. I think we need to play the players that's hot. We have all this talent coming in. You look on the defensive end, on the offensive end. Another avenue for kids to get on the field is play special teams, man. You can really make a difference special teams. You look at traditionally what makes Alabama players so unique. You look at a Jamison Williams, first-round pick receiver, but he was probably the best All-American gunner on special teams, punt return, on punt coverage. We know what he could do in the return game. You look at Will Anderson, he's on the extra point team. You look at who else? Derrick Henry was like on punt block. Like, these guys put in that work. And I think if you're a young player, if you try to make the transition to the field, special teams is a way to get on the field and you get a better feel for the game. I know when Coach Saban came my senior year, he really honed in on how important special teams is. And if you're good, you're going to make plays. And it really helps you get a better feel for the game, playing with more confidence, and going out there and making plays. And so by the time you get the offense, you already know you're the hot player. So Coach Saban is going to give you more touches. So I think for players, use special teams as a tool or platform to really not only get a better feel for the game, but to always compete, but be a great asset for this team to be dominant on the football field. So yeah, special teams. I want to talk about that. So that intangible that Alabama needs to have. And another thing about being on special teams, you make a name for yourself. You become more instinctive. You become playing with more consistency, and it just rubs off to your other positions, whether it's offensive, defense. So yeah, we need to have that. So I mentioned Alabama needs to play with a lot more intensity. We're building the camaraderie. We have the coaches. We need to play with that even more so next level confidence to be that much more dominant. So let's go to the student section. James Knox has a great question right here. Shouts out to James Knox in the building. From a coaching perspective, what does a coach look for to know that a QB is ready? It varies from different coaches, but I think, for me, from what I've seen, that I think, a quarterback is just a savvy. Quarterbacks are different, being a part of the game. Always quarterbacks, they kind of have like a cocky, confident attitude where, I can make all the throws. I'm that guy. I'm a leader. I'm him, as all the young kids say. You carry that calm leadership like a Bryce Young, who we were talking about here shortly. Obviously accuracy, displaying leadership, getting in the right play. Is he a great leader? There's so many different intangibles, but a lot of people just look at the big arm and things like that. But I think as you have a quarterback that has good football IQ, know how to get in the right play, know how to make the right play, I think that's what separates for coaches can look for that's a quarterback that who is ready. So great comment. Stephen Hicks says, "Sweet home Alabama." Yes. Joe Stapleton, great comment. When Saban wants to know who the quarterback is, he'll let us know. Like right now, we're just, I'm just reporting what's going on, So I trust Coach Saban at the end of the day. Coach Saban's going to find a way to make the best decision for Alabama football. And he's going to put the quarterback out there or the player out there that's going to be consistent, that's going to make the right plays, is going to get us in the right play, is going to instill confidence in the rest of the players, going to have the leadership qualities, and he's going to be, like I said, have that savviness, have that type of confidence to be dominant and just lead this team to a national championship, lead this offense to be as dominant as possible on the offensive end. So, like you said, Coach Saban's going to play that guy who fits those criteria right then and there. So, let's go to my next topic. So we're talking about quarterbacks, and I kind of want to shift gears to the NFL. We mentioned Miro and Simpson, but I want to talk about Bryce Young. I want to talk about our quarterbacks in the NFL. We know Bryce Young is getting rave reviews coming out of Charlotte, North Carolina. A lot from these older veterans, and going to the NFL, being a rookie, it's like you're starting back as a peon. I don't care if you're first round pick, whatever, you're back on level one, back at peon level because it's the NFL. You're dealing with 8-year, 10-year vets. You got to carry your pads. You got to do everything for the rookies. You got to entertain as a rookie. You got to do so much, but a lot of veterans are just so impressed with Bryce Young, his leadership, his intangibles. They're wowed by his throws, his accuracy, and Bryce Young is looking good. So it made me think about how Bryce is sorry, I have it. So how Bryce is just dominant in the NFC South. I mentioned earlier how I think Bryce can win the NFC South with the Carolina Panthers this year. But an article came out and they were saying, what Bryce Young's potential numbers might look at as a rookie year. And they said 13 picks. And I was like, I don't know if I see Bryce 16-game season, 13 picks, 400, almost 5,000 yards passing, 20-some touchdowns. I don't know if I see Bryce with 13 picks. I think he'll have more. I think he'll be closer to 30, 30-plus touchdowns if he has 13 picks. But I think 13 picks is a little bit high for Bryce Young. But 16, 17, 18-game season, I mean, that's not too bad. It's still a little high, but I still think Bryce can have less, maybe 12, 11 if he does have double-digit picks, but I don't think it's going to be as high as 13. And I still think, listen, Bryce Young is coming for the NFC South. So I know we got all those Falcons fans on here, but I'm a Bryce Young fan. Falcons, y'all don't have Bryce, so I got to go with Bryce. So it is what it is. So Bryce Young, I mean, he's getting rave reviews, vets, leadership. They saying he's a Cali kid. He wants to be a better pro. He having the right demeanor, and I think that's just going to pay off. And if you look at the Carolina Panthers, for all you Bama fans out there, this is what we do at Football University. Video broke of Bryce Young throwing accurate passes, in practices to Adam Thielen and all these receivers. And then you look at the NFC in the other division, in the NFC South division, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And listen, they're showing videos of Baker Mayfield missing so many passes. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't be surprised if Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers win this NFC South. Because listen, Baker Mayfield is not looking good compared to Bryce Young. So, but I want to talk about Bryce Young being so impressive in the NFL so far. And I want to talk about our next big quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, down there in Miami Heat. Miami's got a lot of momentum. They got the Heat. They got the Florida Panthers. I think they're in the Stanley Cup Finals. So a lot of momentum down there in Miami. So like I said, Miami's my sleeper pick to get to the Super Bowl. If Tua's healthy, maybe they get to acquire maybe a Dalvin Cook or another. They got ATM, but I think they're going to be sleeper. But listen, Tua, news broke, they're having their their OTAs, and Tua looks a lot thicker. He's doing the jiu-jitsu down there in Miami. I mean, showing the practice highlights, he still has that accuracy, lethal timing, velocity, accuracy. And Tyreek Hill just doubled down again on talking about how Tua is the most accurate quarterback. So I just think, Tua, he's going to have an impressive year, for me at the quarterback position. I hope he stays healthy. He's been practicing with a camera on his helmet, working on the auditory skills of visual, audio, working on, rhythm of play calling, kind of seeing how the plays, how you can manipulate the defense. So listen, don't sleep on Miami. I think they're going to be lethal this year. So I talked about Bryce, I talked about the Carolina Panthers, and I talked about the Miami Dolphins. So we're going to stay talking about Bama guys in the NFL. So I got to talk about Alabama guy. And speaking of Bama quarterbacks, I'm talking about, this is a legend. This is the guy who set the tone. He just celebrated his 80th birthday last week. I want to say shouts out to Joe Broadway, Joe Namath, celebrating his 80th birthday, the most famous New York Jet of all time, winning this, beating the Colts and Johnny Unitas, guaranteeing a win. I just had to shout out Joe Namath. We find a way to bring it back out of Alabama. But Alabama has such a storied history of quarterbacks, whether it's Joe Namath, Kenny Stabler, Bart Starr, and now we got the new generation with Jalen Hurts and Tua and Bryce Young and Mac Jones. So, Alabama's just rolling when it comes to QBs. But I want to shout out Joe Willie Broadway Namath. He's changed the game when it comes to playing quarterback. He was so cool, the big furry coats on the sideline playing with the white cleats. And so, all the ladies came to the game for Joe Namath. So shouts out to Joe Namath, Broadway Joe Cool. I want to shout him out here at Football University because that's what we do. Now I'm shifting to other positions in the NFL, and I want to discuss this. Jerry Jeudy, we know the talented receiver out of Florida. He was on a podcast, I Am Athlete, with Brandon Marshall, and he mentioned that he said that they asked him, who's the best DB that you went against? And he said, Patrick Surtain is the best DB he's ever went against. He's like, his length, his size, his football IQ, his acumen. He's like, you really have to think and really have to get in your mind trying to run routes on Patrick Surtain. So I wanted to take a note of that and mention that here at Football University, because that's what we do. We talk Bama, SEC, NFL. We do it all here. So I want to discuss that. So let's go in the student section. Let's see what y'all are talking about. Jeff Saban said Malik Benson is a game changer. The guy is a game changer coming from JUCO. I mean, he's just got it right now. We looked at the spring game. It looked like towards the end, him and Milroe had a little rapport. It's going to be interesting. I just think we've got to play the quarterback who delivers the ball accurately, gets us in the right play, and makes the players around him better. Like Jokic and all these guys, or Jimmy Butler, as I mentioned. So yeah, let's stay in the student section. Brian Green says, Saban will know who's ready when whoever wins the locker room as well as on the field. We already know this. Saban's going to play that guy. Jeff Saban says fast starts. Go ahead and get them early. Yeah, we do need to start the game fast. Great point, Jeff Saban. We do need to start fast, but you look at being able to make in-game adjustments. I'm talking about the NBA playoffs. We need to be able to you look at the Miami Heat, and I'm making the comparisons. The Miami Heat, they were down 0-1, to the Denver Nuggets in the finals, and everybody was saying, oh, they're going to get it swept, but it shows the type of resiliency that they have. And so I think Alabama needs to play with supreme elite confidence, but we need to have that type of hunger, that type of desire to never be satisfied, where we're always resilient no matter what type of adversity. Like the Miami Heat, they bounced back game 2 in Denver like it was nothing. Now the series is tied. And so that shows you what type of locker room, what type of culture, what type of mentality that the Miami Heat has that Alabama can take on. They kind of have those type of characteristics because they're going to need it this year to go through the SEC West, to go through the SEC. I still think it's Alabama, LSU, and the SEC West. I think that's who it's going to come down to. Yeah, Alabama's going to need that resiliency. They're going to need that hunger to be dominant this year. And bring that intensity. I mean, I feel like I mentioned earlier, have that intensity. I mentioned juice, bringing that juice earlier. Bama needs to have that intensity like the Miami Heat play with. I mean, these guys are intense. They bring it on the defensive end. They're always in the game. They're always looking to make the right play. So Alabama needs to have that same type of mindset on the football field. So great point. So let's stay in this section. Y'all are rolling. Somebody says, I remember Joe Namath's pantyhose commercial. I mean, I know that's crazy, right? Joe Namath was just everywhere back in the day. Van Elvers makes a great point. He's saying, listen, Bryce corrected the play sheet that was wrong, and they said the coaches loved it. Yeah, you look at Carolina Panthers, you look at Frank Wright, Jim Caldwell, McNown, they got a QB coach. They have a lot of pieces. David Teppers, they're very involved in this QB race. They traded up from number 7 to number 1 because they knew they wanted Bryce Young. And who won't want Bryce Young? I think, like I said, in the NFC South, I'm going for the Panthers. I'm going for Bryce. I'm a Bryce Young fan. So Falcons fans, come at me. Great comment right here. Matt, how do you feel about new SEC schedule format? Do you feel Jermaine Burton is impact on this season? I mentioned the SEC format earlier. Coach Saban has been lobbying for like a 9-game SEC conference schedule, but the SEC came up. Greg Sankey, Destin Florida, SEC Spring League meetings last week said that the SEC in 2024 will be going to the 8-game SEC schedule and playing another, Power 5 school away. And I think it's important that Power 5 school, I know Alabama's already having crazy schedules. Alabama's kind of leading the way, led by Greg Burns. But, excuse me, I think it's important that we play the 8-game SEC schedule, but we need to make sure we're scheduling a good Power 5 team, whether it's a Big Ten team, an ACC team, a Pac-12 team, a Big 12 team, because that same year, we're going to the 12-team playoff. So we already need to get acclimated to playing, different teams, home and home games. I mentioned Texas earlier. We got Texas coming here. So, it's going to be interesting to see how the 12-team playoff is going to happen, fall out. But I do think the SEC is making the right decision, playing an 8-game season. I wouldn't mind a 9 games, but if we do 8, make sure that 9 game is versus a tough Power 5 opponent, not no directional school. Nobody wants to see that. So Brian Green says, great comment. He says, how long do you think Steele will coach before Pruitt is asked to come back? Hopefully, we're able to bring Pruitt back maybe this year. I don't know what the legality of the whole NCAA. I know the SEC, from what I've heard, has cleared him. I know he met with the NCAA. I don't know if the NCAA has made their ruling. So hopefully we get some news about Pruitt here. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get news about Pruitt and he's possibly an analyst on staff. And then, when Steele retires, then Pruitt takes over as the DC. So fingers crossed. That's what I'm hoping for. So, yeah. So Falcons fans. Oh, to answer your question, rise up to all the Falcons fans. To answer the B part of your question is, do you think Jermaine Burton will have an impact? I think it's Jermaine Burton will have an impact. I just think it's up to Jermaine Burton. I think he needs to be. This is like his money year. He needs to make a name for himself. He's got so much competition in the wide receiver room, so he needs to kind of take some ownership, some leadership, be that guy. Show those young guys how to do it the right way, and get back. We don't need to have any more drops. Him and Brooks are kind of the veterans in the receiver room. They need to make sure that they're setting the tone, being the leaders, setting the standard of that wide receiver. That way we can have our wide receiver room like we did back when we had Waddle and Judy and Smitty and all these guys. So, I do think Jermaine Burton can have a positive impact. But like I said, I think it's up to Jermaine Burton and all the receivers. They still had a lot of drops. They need to work on, the intricacies, the details, the little things of playing receiver, route running, leverage, hand-eye coordinator, catching the ball, looking the ball in, all those type of things. I think they can work with on their own, take ownership on getting better at their craft. And I think it will pay off and take this Alabama offense to the next level. So great comment right there. So let's see. Did we cover everything? I think we covered everything. Thank you, Cindy Reed. Remember these to catch the ball. I know we got quarterbacks. We're breaking in a new quarterback. Listen, you need to catch the ball. Catch the balls, guys. James Knox says Bama seems to do better when the first game is a Power 5 opponent. Go figure. Yeah, it is what it is. We play MTSU, technically they're Power 5, but that number 2 game, playing Texas, that's probably the biggest game, early season matchup of the year. Everybody's going to be glued to the tube. Everybody's going to be in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, for the Alabama-Texas game. So I'm excited. I'm just ready for Alabama just to, take it to those Texas Longhorns. But that's been a great show. I think we have covered everything. Shouts out to the student section. Shouts out to you guys turning in to hear another episode of Football University. Thanks to the student section, Stephen Hicks, Jeff Saban and 6-0, Lori Caddell, Cindy Reed. Tell somebody else about this show. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you got any more football head friends, tell them to come back next Monday, same time, where we'll be back here with Football University discussing football things and find a way to bring in Alabama with me, Matt Caddell. But in the meantime, in between time, enjoy your week, be safe, and I cannot wait to see y'all next week. Peace. Have a great one.